Hello everyone, welcome to BFI Film Academy Lab session today on production design. My name is Tia Ali, I am BFI Network Officer of Southeast. I'm a South Asian woman with dark hair. My pronouns are she, her. And as an introduction to BFI Film Academy Labs, for those of you that don't know, these are online events for 16 to 25-year-olds to gain industry insight and get professional advice and support to help develop their film programming and filmmaking practices. Programmed by the Young Film Programmers Network Southeast, they are delivered as practical masterclasses, workshops, and networking sessions. Today's session on production design will be led by our young film programmer presenter, Jackie du Bled, who is a young creative and at an early stage of her career as a production designer. She will have the pleasure of interviewing the wonderful Gini Godwin, who has 10 years experience of working in the industry as a production designer and has worked on a range of projects, including Blue Story and Boxing Day, which we will hear more about. And she'll also tell us a little bit about her interesting and unconventional journey at becoming a production designer, which I hope will inspire all of you. As the interview goes on, please feel free to submit your questions to the Q&A function below. And at the end of the interview, we will ask Ginny some of those questions. Live captioning is also available today. So if you'd like to access this, please click on the button at the bottom of the screen. So without any further ado, I'd love to introduce Jackie and Ginny to the conversation. And here we go. Ginny is joining us. Jackie is joining us. Thank you both so much for having this discussion with us. Before I hand over to you, Jackie, to lead this discussion with Ginny, it would be really lovely to hear about yourself as a young creative and as an early career production designer, and as a segue into your conversation with Ginny. So I will hand over to you.
Sure. Thanks so much for having me. My name is Jackie and I'm the young film programmer for today. I'm based in Brighton. And I've worked mostly in low budget sort of indie productions across music video, feature film and short film, and dabbled a bit in commercial and fashion photography as well. So a bit of everything, which is fun. And just for my self-description, I am a white woman in my mid-20s. I have brown hair and my pronouns are she, her. But yeah, I'm super excited to be here and to chat to you, Ginny, about all things production design. I'm like on a personal level just really excited to hear what you have to say.
Great.
Such a brilliant craft, and I just want everyone to know how fun it is. So to get started, I guess for everyone who might not know exactly what a production designer is or does, can you just define that role a bit in your own words and what that means to you?
Sure. Hello, everyone. Thanks for having me. A production designer, what do we do? So basically, we get in a script and we create the world. So we kind of choose, the colors, the textures, the atmospheres of rooms, of sets. We kind of bring like the written word to life, essentially. And we work super closely with directors, writers sometimes, depending, DOPs. DOPs are our best friends, and also gaffers, really good to make friends with them. And showrunners, if you're doing a big TV show, it's a collaboration. Also costume, hair and makeup. It's a collaboration between everyone to bring the written word to life, essentially. And yeah, so that when the actors walk into the sets, they're like, oh, this is the world we're in. And, it can be a real world or a heightened world or, a dystopia, a utopia, any kind of thing, depending on kind of what the vision is for the piece. So that's what we do. It's our job to, create the world. 100%. And it's the best job in the world.
Yeah, not biased. It's great. I love to see it as like you're sort of creating an extension of character. Like
exactly.
There's so much communication that you can get across through physical space, and that's something I absolutely love doing is like textures and colors and
Yeah.
negative space, and how you can read into all these things on such an emotional level. So
Yeah.
interesting.
I mean, listen, textured wallpaper for me is like, it's my favorite thing, because you kind of, I know. So you kind of, they're in the TV show I just did, there's this room, and it had to be very simple, but I wanted to get, so the character in it, he's having kind of, not a nervous breakdown, but his mental health is not good. So I chose this very like jaggedy textured wallpaper, and he'd also been in prison. So actually it was a bit like that blue, to be honest. But anyway, we painted it this very kind of institutional blue with this like jagged kind of pattern. And there's this beautiful shot that we got, and it's just him against this wall. And you're like, oh, it just, even that texture, it just makes you feel uneasy. So, and then if you put a different kind of texture with like kind of soft shapes, or, you know, like swashes, it gives a completely different feeling, or like visually and just in general, like the atmosphere, it's a lot more, you know, you can create a kind of feeling of feeling safe and nurtured, all within a textured wallpaper. And who knew?
I know, it's amazing. And so much of it is so like subtle and so like in the mind in a way that you might not even realize at first that even have an impact until you like go in and analyze it.
Yeah. And it's like even kind of curtains, especially, I love like curtains and lamps and stuff, because it says so much about the character, and kind of, you know, it says so much about not just their kind of their taste, but also kind of where they kind of sit economically, like, you know, what they can afford. Like, is this someone who has really good taste but can't afford it? You know, there's little bits that you can do. Yeah, exactly. And it's like, so almost like the kind of quality of the fabrics that you use, you're like saying a lot about that as well. So yeah, I mean, there's so much detail that you can go into, and that you should as well. Like, yeah.
Love that. You've actually had a really interesting journey to being a production designer. I know you didn't sort of take the traditional route. There was a few stepping stones along the way. I'd love to hear about how you sort of ended up doing this, what you tried beforehand, and how it happened.
Okay, well, I'll try not to take too long. So I went to a very like academic school. Everyone was like going to Oxford, Cambridge, being like doctors, lawyers. And the only thing that I wanted to do was be in the art block. So that was kind of, and in my final, for my final kind of A-level piece, because this was quite a long time ago now, maybe like 20 years. Anyway, let's not think about that. I made a corset. So I was like, oh, maybe I'll do costume design, but I didn't really know, because honestly, no one from my school went and did creative stuff. And then I was like, I don't really want to have a gap year, but like maybe I need one to figure out what I want to do. Anyway, I'd done a school play, and I was like, and I had a boyfriend in London, to be honest, because I grew up in Birmingham, so I wasn't based in London. And the drama teacher was like, apply to drama school. I was like, jokes, I'll never get in. Having never like read Shakespeare aloud before or anything. Long story short, I got into drama school, and I was like, this is hilarious, I'm going to go and do that, because I felt like I should. Got there, it completely blew my mind. I'd never known anything like it. I nearly got thrown out after each term. But I met people that I am now, you know, who are still my closest friends, having met them 20 years ago. And I hadn't really had that before. It was just a different way of thinking, a different like love of doing something, of, you know, all of that. I don't think I really appreciated it at the time. However, yeah, exactly. And also I'm a much better designer than I ever was an actor. So it's, you know, a good call for everyone. But then, so I did that, nearly got thrown out, managed to last, but I knew by the end it wasn't for me. I then had a couple of years where I went and lived in LA and like temped and just didn't really know what I was doing. Then I went and did an MA at St. Martin's in film, because I was like, I need to use my brain again. And I knew I love film, like I always had, and, you know, all of that. And then I started a children's clothes business. for like 4 years, and I was going like to and from India. I did everything myself, like raised the money, designed everything, having never done any of this.
Incredible.
I went to India on like holiday after I'd done this MA. One of my friends was out there. I went to meet him and his friends, and I just fell in love with the colors. I was like, wow, this place, because I like, it was incredible. I was seeing colors I'd never seen before, the textiles, like everything. I was like, how can I make my life so that I can be here a lot? Anyway, I decided children's clothes, not that I have kids or any of my friends had kids. I just thought small things look cute. Anyway, needless to say, I learned a lot about how not to do things. But I think actually it was a really valuable lesson of kind of, I had to do everything myself. So yeah, it was interesting. Cut to, go to Paris to a trade show. Like Selfridges were like, yeah, super interested in this. I've been doing it for like 3 or 4 years at this point. Selfridges were interested, but they were like, you're going to need to have 5 different collections. And it was about like getting a bigger loan to kind of put money into it. And I was just like, this is now a really big commitment. And is this actually what I want to do? The answer was no, absolutely not. And then, so I kind of wrapped that up, sold off the stock, had absolutely no idea what I was going to do at all. I was 28, nearly 29 at this point. And I'd just broken up with a boyfriend as well. It was like a whole situation. And then 2 of my best friends, they have a production company, and they were about to make their first feature film for £40,000 all in, which is wild in itself. And the designer that they'd used for all their shorts beforehand, she got a job on a TV show. So one of my like oldest, bestest friends, she was like, why don't you come and do the sets and the costumes? We think you'll be good at it. So I did the sets and the costume. I had absolutely no idea what I was doing. I didn't have a props list. I just have no idea at all. But so we shot it all in 2 weeks as well. But by the end of the second week, I was like, okay, this is actually quite fun. And like, I think I'm good at, listen, I wasn't good at it at all. I think I'm still like, I'm definitely still a work in progress. But I was like, I could maybe this could be a thing actually. And that was, I'm coming into my 10th year now. So yeah, that's how I got here.
What a way to get started, just thrown in the deep end, kind of making up your own rules.
It was mad. I feel so sorry for the DOP on that film. Honestly, because if I had someone who turned up now who was like me, I'd be like, get out of here.
Yeah.
I'd honestly just be like, get out. What are you doing? That's ridiculous. Like, out you go. But that didn't happen, and I did it. And actually, the film ended up on Sky Movies. It's no, it's not terrible. It's not terrible at all. That's unfair, but it's not good. But yeah. So that's how that happened.
And so when you first started then, so after that first film, and you went on to try and get other jobs, and you decided that it was kind of what you wanted to do, how did you actually sort of balance making any money? And like, how did you, because I guess you wanted to get your name out there and get more experience, but then you also had to sort of make a living. How did you balance that?
You know what, it's such a good question. So I actually, listen, the truth of the matter is for the first kind of like 2 and a bit years, I just did loads of short films because I realized I had no idea what I was doing, and I should probably like figure that out. So I did loads of short films. And I've got like on my CV now doesn't have all the short films on because I've been doing other stuff, but like horrendous amounts for little or no money. So I had to do other jobs. Like I was temping, I was doing bar stuff, like anything I could do. And that was the reality of it. But now it is getting a bit better because screen skills is such an amazing thing. I definitely, if I'd have known about screen skills, I would have applied to that. because I think
Yeah.
that it's just such an amazing program. But yeah, it's really hard. I don't know. I think things are changing a bit in respects of, you know, the kind of working for free thing is not so common, I think, but I don't know about that at this point. I only know 10 years ago I had to do it for a while. But also that was because I didn't feel like I was ready to actually charge money.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
It did get to a point where I was like, right, I can't do any more of this for free, because if I'm actually going to do this, it needs to be sustainable, and I need to pay my bills, and I need to make a living from it. So I'm going to have to just draw the line. And it's really funny because as soon as I kind of made that agreement with myself, I then only took jobs that were paid or whatever. So then it just kind of, you know, it's a natural progression. But also what I would say is some of those short films that I did, I now still work with the directors, the DOPs from there, and we're kind of all like going up like that. So it's really important to do, because you just never know who you're gonna meet. And you know, there's such a lot of like passion in short films as well, because everyone's doing it because they love it and they want to do it. And yeah, as I say, I still work with people. There's this one short film I did in particular called Sarah Chong is Going to Kill Herself. Totally mad. Loved it. Nearly killed me. Like we built like 11 sets in like, I don't know, 10 days. Like it was totally bonkers. Wow. I know, it was totally bonkers. The script was bonkers, but I still work with Dave Pym, the DOP, Ella Jones, the director, Elaine Gracie, the writer. We have dinners, you know, so that was it. It's really worth doing.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, I mean, networking and meeting people, like, it's not news to anyone, but it's so important. Like,
yeah, it really, you know what, I'm quite bad at the like networking stuff and going to events and things, but I also, when I work with people that I like, I make sure that I check in with them, and I think that's important. Because essentially this job is really hard, actually. So it can be incredibly long hours. It can be, although trying to get better at that, it can be very stressful at times. Like it's high octane. So actually you want to kind of work with people as much as you can that you like, and it's worth like investing in that. And also, let's face it, we all like making movies. That's why we do this. So you're gonna have shared interests, like, you know, yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
And yeah, speaking about the process, then do you want to talk us through a bit of the pre-production process that you go through, because it's obviously sort of almost the biggest part for a production designer, is everything leading up to the production.
Yeah, it is. Sure. So we have some bits and pieces. Okay, so I've just finished Champion. It's a new BBC One show. It's going to be on BBC this year. I think July, actually. It's an 8-part like drama. So I think it's important. So basically you get the scripts in. I have an agent, so I get a script in through my agent, although this one actually came through a producer that I'd worked through before. Anyway, get the scripts in, and then I do the mood boards. So looking through this, so this is kind of my initial like reaction to the script. So I put together images, artists, like photographers, you know, all of this kind of stuff. Anything that I think, any locations that we see. If we keep going, Sammy, thank you. So look at this wallpaper. Oh, actually the wallpaper thing, that will come later. If we keep going. So Champion's based on a South London, it's a Black family drama based in South London, but I wanted it to be colourful and vibrant. And I actually, part of my process is I always take the palette of a show or movie from a piece of art. So I'm very much like, I always start with art or photography. And also I like to use an artist or photographer that is relevant to the project. So for this, I was looking like a Black British artist. I did a shoot up in Liverpool. You know, I was looking for like a Liverpudlian, like kind of emerging artist to take their palette from there. And actually it works. The palette that I actually took from wasn't in this mood board in the end, because it kind of evolved like by the time we kind of got to production. And I'd done this mood board. But yeah, so that's the mood boards like thing. So then you get the job, which is great. Hooray. And then basically get the team together. And I'm really lucky. I have such an amazing team that I work with, that I've actually kind of worked with most of them for the last 5 or 6 years. So we kind of have a process. So then it's about talking with the writer, director, whatever that might be, showrunner, like figuring out our ideas, like what we want the palette to be. So I'll choose a piece of art. So for Champion, we chose a piece. It's called The Three Architects by Labaina Hamid, and she's like one of the most, you know, prolific Black British artists. And she actually did a retrospective at the Tate last year, which was amazing, because I got to like take so we had 4 different directors, and I got to like take them to the Tate and stand in front of this painting, and it was like, yeah, this feels right. I mean, sometimes it's just feeling, sometimes, and I like doing that with directors, because I think, you know, it kind of gets us out the office and we can walk around, and I kind of really enjoyed that bit of it. And then it's just about working with the team and figuring out, like, you know, different locations, what palettes, what we want it to say, what's happening in the action, how we can help tell stories. I mean, we do a master breakdown. So it's kind of like you have locations, the time of day, the whatever, and then you have hero props, you have props, set dressing, graphics, cars, you know, all of this stuff, all of that detail. So for Champion, we had to do, I'm a big kind of fan of reference pictures, and like the art department office that I work in, it's just covered in like pictures and stuff as per location. So kind of Dash, the set deck I work with, she knows the kind of like style and things, and we just get loads of references together. I then walk through with the director, DOP, we do camera tests, we like, you know, textures of wallpapers, we kind of try different colors, we, you know, if they want some kind of weird stuff going on, we try and figure out how to make it work. I mean, maybe we could pull up the show and tell thing. So for this, for the job we just did, so it was BBC, Netflix, we had to do a kind of show and tell essentially of what we were going to do. So if we go through this, so Aria's house, this is the main family house. That was the palette that we were going to do. Go down. So we do tech recce's. We do floor plans. So basically you can see on this, so the floor plan, we actually kind of like faked that the house was half the size. So we built in kind of like fake walls and, you know, like all of this kind of stuff. And then if you keep going, Sammy, please, thank you. So this was the kind of some of the picture references, the color of the paint we were going to do, the hallway. Can keep going, please. So this was going to be the living room. So you've got the reference pictures, how we were going to dress it, the kind of atmosphere. So we had a brown leather sofa. We had those kind of like soft textures. You know, we wanted a lot of history, a lot of pictures to show that this family, their history essentially. If we keep going, and then you have, look, so you've got the textured wallpaper, the color, the kind of nets that we put up, the curtain fabric, all of that stuff. We'll just go through a bit more of this. This was kind of, oh, there I am, hilarious. If we keep going, we kind of changed the lamp and, you know, that's the actual sofa there that we put in, the actual coffee table. So it's all of this. If we keep going, because maybe we'll go to Vita's bedroom. I mean, the kitchen, we did a watermelon kitchen. It was so much fun. But there we go. There's the colours. It was really fun, actually. Yeah, really good. Keep going. Let's get to Vita's room. So Vita's like one of the main characters, and she has a really kind of, the show is really about her stepping into her light. So we wanted to kind of bring the fact that she's like 23. So we wanted to kind of hark back to the fact that actually she would have been in this room from when she was 17, but actually she's kind of just beginning to kind of step into her womanhood and, you know, all of that. So we wanted bits from her teenage years, but then also kind of she's becoming this grown up, you know, and so we picked this kind of headboard and the fabrics and, you know, all of that. Keep going, Sammy, please. So these were the colors. That was the headboard. We did this kind of dragon wallpaper in the shelves, you know, stuff like that. I think that's probably enough, isn't it?
That was amazing. I love seeing all of that.
And then so you do all of that, you get it approved by everyone, everyone's into it, loves it, great, perfect. And then you actually have to do it. And then it's about working with the AD about the schedule, working with your props teams, dressing teams, construction. You know, it's like a lot of it is logistics as well, but that's where having an amazing art director comes in, because they do that, and the prop master and the props team. So and that's what pre-production is. And then you're ready to shoot, and then it doesn't stop there, because especially when you do TV, it's block 1, block 2, and you have returning things. And you know, if it's a location thing, then you're in people's houses, you know, so they're still kind of sometimes living there. It's such there's a lot of, so as a designer, your job is keeping everyone happy, and that can be difficult. And it is definitely, some days I feel like I'm just putting out fires, you know, and just trying to keep everyone happy, trying to make sure the director gets what they want, costume are happy, hair and makeup are happy, DOP is happy, showrunners happy. It's like, it's a lot, but it's really fun.
Yeah. Apart from all that, it's really fun.
Apart from all that, but it is like, you know, and also you're running a team, so it's like you then also within all of that you have to look after your team. So you know, make sure everyone's happy and feeling valued, and it's quite it's a lot.
I mean, I was just thinking about the sort of skills that you need to be a production designer, and I guess like you've obviously got all the creative stuff, but like you were saying, you need to be a manager of sorts, and you're managing a whole team of people and a whole budget.
So the budget is super important. The thing is, because I came from doing short films and like indie features and stuff, like where I used to have to do everything, so I was the buyer, I did the budget, I was standby, I did the dressing, I did everything, right? I drove the van, like me in a Luton van, hilarious but fine actually. So I think because I did used to do everything for a while, it kind of, I have a real appreciation of what I'm asking people to do. So, you know, and budget is just so important, because if you do not keep on top of things, it just gets out of control. I'm lucky, my mum and dad are accountants, so I've always like, I've had that instilled in me, I know. And I'm actually on this new job, I'm actually getting an art department accountant in like 2 days a week, because I don't have a supervising art director, and they usually do the budget, but I'm trying it like this just to see how it goes. I'll let you know, but I think it'll be great.
Let me know.
I will.
So I mean, moving on to the next question then, I mean, what are some of the challenges that you face as a production designer? Obviously budget is one of them, but is there anything that comes up like again and again, or is it more like project specific challenges?
I think, listen, each project is different, you're working with different people. I think you have to remember this is creative, so you've got a bunch of creative people who all have probably quite strong opinions, and as I said before, it's about managing that, also managing expectations, because you know, people have a budget and they want things for like twice that budget, and you're like, great, but impossible. However, our job is to figure out solutions. So it's like, what a great idea, however, we can't do that, how about this? That's the job. It's to say, great, perfect, probably can't do that, but what about this? So always having solutions, and you know, that can be hard, especially when you can't just throw money at it. It's difficult, but you have to be super creative, and actually that's kind of fun in itself, I think. I would say, like, budget and money and expectations, that is the main kind of thing that is difficult, actually.
Yeah, that's definitely my least favorite part of that kind of thing. I'm not super good with numbers. Obviously, you always get better, like, the more you do it, and I will get my head around it, but I'm still sort of that part of it right now.
You know what? You just need a good budget template, and then and just keep on top of it. Like, it's a pain, but I make sure everyone does their receipts at the end of each day. Everyone takes half an hour, whatever it is, and then you're just on top of it. Because also on these bigger shows, you have to do a weekly cost report with the accountants, and, you know, set deck. They can't get any, like, flow until they've done that, and rightly so, because you're talking about lots of money, and, like, you know, people have to keep on top of it. It's not the most amazing part of the job, but it is important. And also, you know, the more experience, the more you're like, right, you know how much things cost, where you should spend the money. That's the other thing. It's like, say, for example, you've got a set that, you know, is going to cost loads of money to dress, like a hospital set, but you're in there for literally 10 seconds. And, you know, the rest of it, it's like, okay, how are you going to make that work? Because actually, you know, and then it's up to you. Exactly. It's up to you as a designer, being like, oh, could it be done in the corridor? Like, you know, because that's cheaper dress, you know, or just finding solutions like that.
100%
is what I would say.
Is there anything else that people might not know about working in production design that you want to shed light on?
Dude, it is not glamorous.
There's lots of heavy lifting, right?
Well, listen, there was at the beginning. I'm lucky now. I have, like, a team. I don't lift anything anymore. But I mean, listen, I get involved with dressing sometimes if I can or whatever, but I have, like, a team of people to do that now. But in the beginning, I'm not joking. So when I was doing all the short films, I used to get ill at the end of each year. I had a kidney infection 3 years in a row because I was just wiped out. And that's something that I have actually learned, that I need to take care of myself, because you know, it can be really hard. Like, I really try and make sure that my team only works certain hours. Listen, there's always going to be moments where, especially with film, it's last minute and you're going to have to do a late night or like a later evening. But I really try and keep that to a minimum. But on low budget stuff, it's really hard because you're doing everything and it can be exhausting. So you have to sleep when you can. You have to eat your vegetables. You have to drink enough water. You know, all of that basic kind of looking after yourself that so I think it wasn't last year, the year before. So obviously we had lockdown, and then I was very lucky. I kind of worked the whole way through, really. We had the first lockdown where I had off, but after that I just worked, and I didn't take any time off for like 18 months. And I got to the point where I was just like, I have nothing left. So before I started Champion, I actually had 6 months off, and I realized that yes, work super hard, but the kind of downtime and actually letting yourself recharge, and sleeping and, like, seeing your friends, seeing your family is super important as well. And also when you're constantly being creative and constantly firefighting, and it's a lot, like, emotionally, physically, everything, and you have to give yourself a break, is what I think. And that is as important as all the other stuff. So I now kind of in between projects. So I did Champion for a year, and now I've just had 3 months off just before I started Queenie, like, last week, and I'm kind of, like, ready to go, you know. And after this one I'm going straight on to another one, but I'll be done in kind of September. So, you know, I'll probably won't work for the rest of the year, unless it's something incredible that I absolutely have to do, which might happen, but in which case I'll kind of build in some downtime at some point. But you know, I'm very lucky, I'm kind of at a stage where I can do that. But I think if someone had told me before, like, you really have to look after yourself physically, would I have listened? I don't know, but you should.
I mean, I know, like, that's something for me now that I'm just starting to realize.
Yeah.
Because, like, obviously everyone knows that you have to take care of yourself, but when you're young, you're just sort of like, yeah, whatever, like, it'll be fine.
I'll be fine. Yeah, I know. Well, I know. Well, the thing is, because I wasn't, you know, I was 29, very young still when I started. So it wasn't even like I was like 21 and, you know, whatever. But, and listen, there are some really fun, interesting, wild people who work in film. And part of the, like, one of the best part of the jobs is that, and like getting to know people and having a nice time. And I always feel like, you know, that's super important. And kind of, you know, I've had ideas with directors when we've been like at dinner or whatever, you know, so it's kind of finding that balance of looking after yourself, but having a nice time, doing the work. And yeah, and I to be honest, I don't know if I've found that balance yet, but I'm getting there. I don't know if I ever will, actually.
That's really great advice, though. I mean, it's applicable to sort of anyone in any, like, hard creative role, or just any hardworking role, to be honest.
Yeah.
It's really good to remember.
Yeah, it is. It really is. And like, you give so much of yourself. You've got to give yourself a moment, you know, to recharge so you can give that again. And
let yourself do your best work as well, because you won't do your best work if you're tired out and burned out. So
that summer, I said to my agent, I was like, do not send me another script. I don't want to read anything. Like, I cannot. I've got nothing left to give. And then they sent me the then Barbara Met Alan with like Jack Thorne, and like, you know, I was just like, oh, now I have to do this. Went into the meeting. So did I'd actually, because I was in Slovenia doing a commercial, having like a great time, like, but I was like, this is it. I'm not working until I do Champion, like, you know, all of that. They sent this script and I was just like, oh God, so I have to do this now, don't I? Like, I have to do it. Did the meeting so begrudgingly, loved it, like, loved the meeting, loved everyone. I was like, oh, but you know, I also understand that's an incredibly privileged position to be in. But I did that, and then I didn't work for 6 months, and thank God, because Champion was wild.
Yeah. And then yes. Barbara Met Alan,
yes,
that was like a super fun project to work on. It was so for people listening, it was basically about these two people who started this disability activist group in the 90s, and it's a really special story. And yeah, I actually would love to talk to you about what it was like designing for something set in a specific time period like that. Because obviously it's not like, it's a specific time period, but it's not so far removed from us that it looks completely different. So it's a lot more subtle.
Yeah, well, it was great. We got to build a set for that one. We got to build Barbara's house. It was so much fun. And she's actually still alive. So I went and spent some time with her, and she still lives in the house that everything happened in.
Amazing.
So I actually went and spent some time with her and kind of got to know her a bit, and actually like took measurements of her house. And then just kind of had a lot of fun with it. But that was wild because all the casts were actually disabled. Well, not all the cast, but a lot of the cast were disabled. So we had to make sure everything, all the locations were accessible. Yeah, but it's mad because even now, like doing that film, I was just like, wow, like it's still not what it should be, actually. So for me, part of the, as I said, I didn't want to work or whatever, and that story came in, and I was like, okay, why do I even do this job? And my whole thing, the whole way through, has been, I want to tell important stories, like I want to work with interesting people, and I want to make it as beautiful as I can, and that is why I do what I do. And that script ticked every single box. So I was like, no brainer, really. But it was so much fun. Listen, I love doing the research. I love, you know, looking at artists. I love looking at reference pictures. And because that was based on true events, there was a lot of stuff in the press. I mean, these guys were absolute, like, they used to get drunk, they partied, they took drugs. You know, they might be in wheelchairs or someone doesn't have an arm or whatever, but they were like proper, you know, like punks, actually. Like, that's what they were. I mean, they shut down Westminster Bridge, they went to Parliament, like, and all because they just wanted to be able to take public transport. I mean, it's wild that that was the case. And it was so, you know, so recent, really. But design wise, it was so fun because, you know, it's stuff like the light switches had to be lower. Yeah, you know, like all of that kind of stuff that you wouldn't necessarily notice, but if it's wrong, then you notice.
Then you'd notice, yeah, absolutely.
Exactly. It was really fun though. I love that. And Barbara is such a character. We didn't get to meet Alan because he was meant to come over and she banned him.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I know. It's pretty good. It was pretty good.
I guess to sort of round off the session, I'd love to ask you, so what's been most helpful to your career so far, if you can pin it down, or a few things that we can leave everyone with some nuggets of wisdom from you, Ginny?
I don't know if I have nuggets of wisdom, but what I would say is being nice to people. Like, people talk, and I now, you know, like I have an agent, which is great, they're wonderful, but actually I get a lot of my jobs because of producers that I've worked with, like keeping good relationships with them, like no matter what, you know, you're all in this together. And actually, like, sure, sometimes you get like not great people, but you know, stay away from them. I would just say be nice, and be nice to your team as well. Like, I think that's so important. Yeah, I think that's honestly, I think that's the best piece of advice, because I feel like if you're going into this profession anyway, you love what you do, you're artistic, you can do the job. Let's take that for granted. Just like be good, like be nice to people, have fun. Like, I always feel like when everyone's having fun on set, you make the best work. So that's actually what it's about. And at the end of the day, we're there to do the work. That is what it comes down to. And, you know, I feel like happy people make the best work. So whatever you can do. The other thing I would say, and this is, and I understand like money and all of that, but I would say go and like live life. Go to different places, go and see stuff, architecture, colors. You know, I spent last January in Mexico and like I saw a color there that I ended up putting in the house, in the family house. You know, it's like, go and actually like live and see stuff, and see the Gaudi in Barcelona, like, you know, all it, because you just never know, you might get a script and you're like, oh, I want to use that bathroom. You know, I think it's so important. Oh, and also there's this little thing called a Nix Pro or whatever, and it's basically this little thing, you put it on a kind of color, and then it's an app on your phone, and it tells you,
I've heard of this.
Yeah, it tells you what color it is, and wherever you are in the world, it gives you the paint manufacturers and the closest match to that color. Take it everywhere. Fun. Yeah, honestly, it's like 90 quid on Amazon. It's, you know, it is one of the best pieces of kit I can advise to anyone. So yeah.
What's it called again? I'm gonna write it down.
Yeah, and Nix. Yeah, that's it. Those are my top three.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much, Ginny. This has been an amazing chat, and you've shared so much cool stuff of your experience, life lessons, kit recommendations. Thank you so much.
Listen, I got loads more.
Come back. So I'm going to hand over to Tia now to field any questions from the audience.
Thank you, Jackie.
Thank you, Jackie and Ginny, for that wonderful, insightful discussion around the world of production design. We do have a couple of questions that have come in, actually, and I think this question is probably rooted from like the different roles in production. And so somebody's asking, is production designer different from set designer? Perhaps maybe if you can talk about the different roles in like within your team that you work with.
Yeah, sure. So, okay, it depends on the scale of the project. So essentially you have production designer, and then you kind of have art director, set deck, and then you kind of have the assistants that trickle down. Then you have kind of your props team, so that's prop master, and you have kind of the dressing team. And then you have the standby team, so they're your on-set people. And then set designers, they kind of come in if you're doing like a specific set. For example, on The Crown, I don't know if people have watched the last series, there was like a whole burnt down situation. So they probably would have got in different kind of drafts people and set designers to do that. But that's on very large scale stuff. So it's a little bit confusing, because often when I say, oh, I'm a production designer, people are like, oh, you work in production? It's like, no. So then I will say I'm a set designer for film and TV and commercials. But actually, technically, when you come down to it, set designer is a different thing within the production design department.
Wow, that's a big team that you work with and lots of different roles.
Yeah.
So just for a lot of people who have tuned in that are probably at the early stages of kind of exploring filmmaking, how do you approach a short film as a production designer in terms of like do you take on all those roles? How does that work for you? Or how did it work for you?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I had many years of doing everything. So, and it's wild actually. And it also depends on budget because if you've only got 500 quid to spend, there's only so much you can do. I mean, I want to paint everything and wallpaper everything and whatever, but actually even now I have to prioritize because what I've also realized is you're never going to have enough money, like no matter what you're doing, because as the levels go up, so does the money and all of the stuff. But on short films, it depends on the budget. I would always try and have an assistant or someone to help, because actually when you're trying to do everything and it's last minute and long hours, and the DOPs can be very particular, and so can directors. As I said, it's about managing the expectations, but to be honest, that only comes with experience anyway. So in the beginning, you just have to be up for it all, is what I would say.
Sounds about right. Is there also an element of like really interrogating the script and having lots of discussions with the director and writers to kind of prioritize what is actually achievable in terms of production design when it comes to the budget as well, and having those difficult conversations like, actually, can we compromise costume for a prop or whatever's going to really actually serve the story visually?
Yeah, 100%. I think doing your breakdown is one of the other most important things. So like knowing exactly what you need, like kind of physically, so like hero props and things like that. There are some things that you will not be able to not have, whereas there's other stuff that maybe you could do without, or and often it comes down to, well, do you want to paint a wall, or do you want to get those colors in like the soft furnishings and stuff? Because actually, if you can hang art, if you can do kind of like throws and cushions and stuff, sometimes that's enough to instead of painting a wall, which then you have to paint back, so you're talking like 500 quid already, whereas actually with artwork and soft furnishings, a couple of £100 and you're probably good. And it's about that communication with the director, with the DOP, figuring out exactly what is the most important to them, and also the story. It's all about the story, like what does the story need, and what can you do within your means to aid that. It really is about communication, and I would say the most important thing is do not overpromise stuff, because once you're, and I'm so bad at that, like the team I work with are always just like, Ginny, stop. Like the art director I work with a lot, he's always just like, stop saying yes. So now I've learned to be like, I'll see. Or like anything's possible at this moment. Let me check with people, you know, because I'm like, yeah, great, yeah, I'm very enthusiastic about it all. But actually the realities have to be said, and that's something that I've learned. You can't overpromise. But there was some, they wanted a like street light outside, and we were literally going to see it for like a second, and you know, this thing would have cost £2,500 a week, or what, no, £1,000 a week to hire. We needed it for 5, you know, and that's £5,000. It's not like a huge amount of our budget, but it's still a lot. And I was like, yeah, fine. And then I had to be like, actually, potentially not, maybe, but perhaps I'll try my best, you know, to make that work if that's what we really need, you know. So
useful to know. Always have budget at the forefront of your mind then in the planning stages.
The thing is, so I always put together the budget with the art director and set deck and prop master. So I'm very kind of like involved in that. I then hand it over to someone else to do, but we all do it together, because, and that is after everyone's done their breakdowns. Kind of, it does change once you see the locations, because, so for example, in the show I'm about to do, like we're kind of in that phase of putting together the budgets and stuff, but we haven't seen the locations yet. We know there's a big office kind of newspaper location. Now, it's going to be a huge difference if we have an empty space to if we're actually using an office that we're kind of happy with the desks and stuff. We're talking thousands of pounds difference there in dressing.
Wow.
So, you know, it's this constant kind of shifting and, you know, all of this stuff. So, yeah.
That's really useful to know. And from your perspective as a production designer, when you read scripts, is the vision always clear in terms of the world that you need to then go create? Or is that, again, conversations you have with the director and writer to help lead you and guide you?
Yeah, it's very much, well, listen, everyone's different. Some directors are like so specific on what they want, and there isn't really much wiggle room. But then some are incredibly collaborative, and actually I would take the lead with it. And really, when it comes down to it, it's whatever is best for the story. I have yet to have, and I'm sure it will happen at some point, and I'm ready for it, a huge disagreement, because actually I've been really lucky to work with people that I respect their opinion, they respect mine. So we've always come to some kind of, you know, compromise, collaboration, or solution, let's say. Yeah, one of the sets in Champion, like, you know, actually I can't tell you that because it's probably top secret, so I'm not going to tell you that, but there was a big compromise that had to be made, and actually it was up to me to make it work. And it was really hard, but we did it, and actually it was quite fun in the end, because it was super creative, everyone was pumped about it, and it was like, sick, we've done it, you know.
Amazing. And there's actually a couple of questions that are coming about the same thing, which is, where do you advise us to create mood boards for those of people who want to, you know, explore production design? Where is the best way, or how is the best way to able to put their ideas forward as a mood board? So
I use Keynote, but then I know people use Photoshop, and then I just save it as PDFs. Is that right? Am I answering the question right there?
Yeah, I think so. I guess they're asking where do you create mood boards? Like, what is the best resource that you use? And where can people go to do them?
Get images from.
Yeah.
So I have a lot of books. I keep really up to date with like new artists. So basically all the shows that I design, I try and fill all the artwork through like emerging artists of whatever is relevant. So Champion was full of like young Black artists. All the artwork are from, you know, like emerging artists. And I just, you know, I'm lucky. I have a lot of friends who, some work in advertising, some work in film. We're always talking about photographers or, you know, like new artists. And I don't know. A lot of books. Instagram is great these days. Like really, they have such good references. Used to be Pinterest back in the day. No one uses that anymore, do they?
Yeah, still do.
Do they? I don't know. But yeah, Instagram has a lot of, you know, Instagram is a very visual medium, and people have like mad accounts. Like there's an account called like Sexy Gutters, you know, and it's all guttering. But but you can literally find anything. So I kind of go for that. I go to a lot of exhibitions. I always buy the books, because you never know, and even if with exhibitions and stuff, you're like not necessarily doing something with that kind of subject, you never know when it will come in useful. Like I've had so many moments where, you know, I've seen an exhibition the year before or whatever, a script comes in and I'm like, oh, I'm going to use that image, you know. And it's just, I feel like anything visual is super important. That's what I mean about the traveling and the architecture, all of that.
Anything to stimulate that creativity.
Exactly. You just don't know when it's going to come in handy, actually.
And just so can you just then clarify what are the best platforms to use as a mood board? Because another question's come out about that. So if you could just please just go through like whatever platforms you use that people would find really useful. And is that, I think you mentioned Keynote as well?
Well, no, so Keynote's the program that I use. So there's two websites that are really great. One's called Shop Deck and one's called Film Grab. Really great for kind of film references. So they don't have every single film, but most films they've kind of gone through and taken screen grabs that you can use as references. So I use those two loads. And then it's just, you know, about kind of, I mean, Googling stuff and just getting into a Google hole about, you know, young Black British artists or artists from Liverpool or artists from like the 17th century France. Like I went up for like a huge film, which I don't even know how I got in the room for that at this moment. And I was like, it was mad. I had 2 days and I was working on another film to put together this mood board, and it was with a director that I love, that I'm sure I will work with at some point. But you know, I didn't have time to go to the British Library. I didn't have time to do all of that, which usually I would have done. So Google is really your best friend, but you've got to get deep into it. You can't just do like the Wikipedia, the first thing that comes up.
Do your research.
Exactly. Click on the links, go like deep into it, and and save everything. I mean, at some point I will catalog all my reference images, but geez.
I mean, I'd buy that catalog. I'm just aware that we're so close to the end now, and I have a burning question myself that I think will be useful for people to hear, which is, what skills do you need to work in production design? Like, you as a production designer, what are the most useful skills for you to be able to do your job effectively, and how have that been developed over time?
You know, it's really interesting because, okay, I've got 2 minutes. So I think because I fell into it and I just kind of did it quite organically. Look, you've got to be able to balance a frame and know what's good, know your colors, because every color, like, you know, creates a different feeling. Understand the textures of like what the story is trying to tell. I know it sounds mad, but like when you see a set that has like all kind of soft throws and, you know, really gentle stuff, it gives a different feeling to like things that are threadbare, or, you know, that you can feel are a bit spiky. Like, but that just takes time and not rushing. Actually, I think that's a really important thing. You don't need to rush this. Like, take your time with it. Like, I learn on every single job, more often than not, how not to do stuff, but like it all adds into, and also don't be afraid to make mistakes with it, because you have to be brave sometimes. And sometimes, you know, hopefully it works most of the time, but sometimes it won't work, and that's okay too.
Right.
I think just knowing your colors, knowing your textures, being aware of the frames and how to piece that together, and working with the DOP and director and communicating is just all my like top things.
Amazing. And that brings us to the end of this lab. Thank you so much, Jackie and Ginny, for this wonderful discussion. I hope all of you have insightful takeaways and are inspired to explore production design as a career. And I will leave this with the last note, which is, you know, do your research, like Ginny says. Have that budget in the forefront of your mind. And when Ginny has that catalogue together, she will let us know and we will let you know. Thank you, everyone, and goodbye.
Thank you
so
so much. Bye.
Bye.